All right. Hello, everybody. We're going to be talking on Chapter 5, selecting which value stream to start with. Um, when you're selecting the right value stream, it's important to understand that there are various things to consider before selecting the right value stream so you get the best product with the best cost. If you choose the wrong stream, it can be costly to your operation, to your organization. So you also have to consider changes based on whether you're on a greenfield, whether it's a greenfield or a brownfield service. And we're going to talk a little bit more about the greenfield and brownfield services and the differences of those later on. We also need to pay attention to the team and the types of individuals on them. The typical types of individuals in your organization are innovators, early adapters, early majority, and laggards, which are also the skeptics. And these can play a major role if you want to introduce new DevOps type processes or new technology value streams.
Okay, my name is Jeremiah and I'll be talking about Nordstrom. Now, it was a very simple thing that happened in 2011. Nordstrom had a board meeting that discussed how to increase online sales profits. Now, the problem that they were facing was they were optimized for cost. They had outsourced many of their technology functions and had annual planning cycles with large batches, and they used the waterfall cycle for software releases. They had great success of hitting their schedule, budget, and goals, but were ill equipped to achieve their 5-year business strategy, which meant progress was slow. Instead, they chose to solve their problem by switching to the complete opposite of basically what they were doing by doing smaller batch sizes, value stream mapping, and using continuous delivery and microservices, which is heavily discussed in the previous chapters, how to optimize workflow. They were able to bring their success higher and ended up fixing all of their problems. Trying to find the right word to say for that.
All right. Now we're going to go a little bit further into the greenfield versus brownfield. Greenfield is in relation to creating or building a project or service on land. It has reference to construction building. If you're building a house or a building on a new plot of land that had nothing there before, you're working on a clean slate. So a lot of times when you're talking about DevOps, you're creating a project or a software on a clean slate. Nothing has been used before, nothing created in the past, and you're building it from the ground up. Brownfield is if you're working on a project that has been previously created. Usually, um, a good comparison is if a building needs to be demolished in order for something else to be built there. And if that's the case, then a lot of times you have to worry about if there's contaminants in the area, you have to deal with those and other things like that. So brownfield, usually you have to worry about technical debt. So next slide. So with green fields, typically you'll have in green fields, typically that you'll have pilots. What you'll see is people who have an idea or a vision of a project and they want to demonstrate functionality and they want to determine feasibility of something of a functionality or protocols, or if they want to automate something, they'll attempt to put something together and present it and then try to sell it that way. But brownfields, if we go to the next slide, brownfield usually comes with technical debt, as I've said previously. There's no test automation or unsupported, or there could be technical debt such as no test automation or unsupported platforms. Um, this correlates with the Nordstrom story heard earlier by Jeremiah. And we see some success stories below here with CSG in 2013 and Etsy in 2009, who implemented a DevOps platform, and that would be those would be successful stories in a brownfield. Another example is where we currently work. We work with a software where we're trying to develop something else to kind of overcome that software because it has presented a lot of difficulties, and where if we were trying to fix that software, we would be working on brownfield territory. But whereas we're developing entirely new software to meet our needs, we were venturing in greenfield territory. And my boss had to present the idea of um, working with this software in order to get funding, that something like this would be feasible. And now that we've developed it for quite some time, a lot of people are getting excited about it. So there are benefits to brownfield as with these success stories, and there are also benefits to greenfield if it's done correctly.
Okay, and now I'm Devin Poe, and I'm gonna talk a little bit about our systems of records and systems of engagement. There are obviously two different types of systems that we have here. You can call them Type 1 and Type 2. Basically, if systems of records are systems that kind of run a business, um, it's also known as a bimodal IT, or a wide spectrum of services that typical enterprises support. Systems of record within bimodal IT are systems that run the business where the correctness of the transaction and the data are paramount. They're usually a little bit slower, they have a lot of compliance requirements, and they focus on doing it right and doing it correct. Type 2 would be where it's a higher pace of change, and it's more about doing it fast than about doing it right. Now, DevOps can do both of these things. They can both do it right and they can do it fast. The ability to change is limited by their bottleneck, which is almost always a system of record. Making changes in a brownfield system. Brown systems, brownfield systems, DevOps strive to reduce their complexity and improve their reliability and stability, making them faster, safer, and easier to change. While in greenfield systems, when we change them, they can cause problems with brownfield systems of record they rely on. So there is a need to make these downstream systems safer to change.
Okay, start with sympathetic and innovative groups. The goal is to find teams of people who believe in DevOps and focus on them, ensuring that they're successful and expanding from there. And we do this by finding innovators and early adopters. In the beginning, we focus our efforts on teams who actually want to help, people that have the same mindset and the same goals and that want to accomplish the same thing. Next is to build critical mass and silent majority, expanding DevOps practices to more teams and value streams with the goal of creating a stable base of support, a platform that all can agree on and all can easily understand. The next is to identify holdouts, which are typically people with lots of power and too stubborn to change. And this can be seen in any work environment. However, we can tackle this by having achieved a silent majority and establishing enough success to successfully protect the initiative. In other words, to build up against the holdout with the majority and show them, with the majority, we can show the holdout how success is done. And this can all lead to a great organization expanding in DevOps.
I just wanted to add that something that I found in my workplace as well is a lot of times you do have those higher ups that are kind of stuck in their way of thinking and they just want to keep doing what they're doing and that it works. Um, this actually also talks on and discusses getting different individuals involved, different types of individuals. And I mentioned this closer to the beginning of the presentation, where you have your innovators, which are your techies, your early adapters, your early majority, and your laggards. And typically, you want to get the innovators and early adapters involved because the innovators love trying new things and they love making changes. And then you have your early adapters, which are people who they're along for the ride. They're like, okay, well, I'm fine with that. And then you have the early majority that are conservatives, but they can easily be um, convinced. And then if you have the majority of the people, that's the last point on this, says that after you have the silent majority are the innovators and early adapters. And then if you get the early majority, you can eventually convince those that are hard-headed that, yeah, this is the way we want to go.
So, in conclusion, DevOps can be a challenge for a lot of different companies. Companies have different mindsets, different organizations that they're built upon, different systems that they have that and structures inside of them. But overall, DevOps is a good way to go for basically any company because if you can break it down and you can identify errors earlier, and you can get everything flowing the way it should. That's what DevOps is meant to do. It's meant to make everything faster and easier.